All right, so Meyer describes the Absetzen as a handwork, but also in his discussion of parrying as this is the true setting off. After parrying with a strike, this is the way that you parry, right? So if there are two ways, you can either parry with a cut or you can parry with what's essentially a thrust. In the longsword, it's kind of a thrust that turns into a strike. In the rapier, it's a thrust that turns into a thrust. And it works either way. It's just really a question of timing on if you want to be nice and short edge cut the person in the head, or you want to be mean and stab them through the face. So it's going to start with a point forward guard. Either Ox or Flug is beautiful as a position to start this from. It can also essentially be done from Absetzen, Longhorn. If your point is forward, you're set up to do this. Trying to do it from a point back guard is a little bit slower. We got to bring the point online. You might as well just cut to parry at that point, unless you're just so much faster than the other person you're trying to be a dick and show off. So what we're going to start, we'll start down in Flug. We're ready to receive an attack. Doesn't really matter which side he's going to attack into, so we'll attack at the left side. So James attacks in. So go ahead, James. I'm going to thrust forward. Now I'm not going to thrust straight at James' face. This is a problem. If I thrust straight at James' face as he impacts the blade, because I'm moving forward, he's going to set me off to the side. I'm going to miss. So I can't thrust straight at his face. Okay. Instead, as James thrusts in, I'm going to thrust at the monkey, I call it a monkey, on his right shoulder. Right, term I use, monkey sitting on his right shoulder. That little clapping one with the constant, I hate that freaking thing. So I'm gonna stab it through the face, okay? This is gonna result in one of two things. James is gonna displace me over, in which case I'm gonna stab him in the eye, winner. Or...
You mean, whoops?
That's definitely what he means.
No, you're wearing black, you're an Italian. Screw you. Right. Or I'm going to gain an overbind situation that I will then work from. Now, there's several different footwork options depending on what we want to do, from, yeah, that's not very good and it's going to be hard to follow on, to that's pretty good, and okay, that works nicely, with timing being an issue on each. So we'll start with the not very good footwork option, which is to say, make sure you got range, just because, yeah. So the first not very good footwork option is as he steps in and attacks, I'm going to step back. Cool, I didn't get hit, but I gotta get all the way back in here. Not my favorite. But for beginners, I like to do it because this way I'm not stepping in and running forward, and now we're wrestling if I've missed the thrust, which is what I don't want. So that's option one, not my favorite. Option two, okay option. James thrusts in, I'm gonna take a small step to the side. Now I've gained a nice overbind situation. I'm gonna wind, drop that point, and drive through if he's Italian, like that guy, or one more time. If he's not Italian and I like him, I'm going to step and parry. I'm going to step forward and then wind it immediately for the strike. Maintaining the long edge the whole time, not breaking contact, not losing pressure, pushing through so that I can feel if he tries to get out of it. Option three is my personal favorite, although it can be a little bit dangerous if you miss your timing because you're not clearing any additional space for your head, and that's just to chamber the step, but don't take it until contact occurs. So James cuts in, I'm going to turn it out immediately, and then be right in. Or, one more time, chamber that strike, step forward, and then, because I like him, and I just want him bleeding from his scalp. Okay? Main keys. Don't stab here. Stab here. Don't stab here. Stab here. Right? If I thrust too far across the line, if I thrust all the way over here, oh, I'm gonna get James. Shit. Right? It has to provide threat. If I'm not in his bubble of awareness, which is when I refer to the monkey as his bubble of awareness.
Let's do that one more time.
Sure.
So if he stabs at the monkey.
Yeah, and try. Right? So I come in, right, and oh, thanks. And just keep the slice on him, even if I miss the point, turn the long edge on and just collapse him. Right, is going to be what we're trying for. So, yeah, so want to do one more? Right. We'll start. He says, oh, I'm going to cut around. Well, he's not going to cut around, but even if he does, I'm going to put my long on his right shoulder and just lock him down.
Meyer says, I have the slice in store for you.
Yeah, right, and so we get into Schneiden on that. I'm in the slice at the end of that as he starts to go around. So I'm not going to take off and strike around. I'm just going to chase right in kill him.
One thing that Meyer is explicit about is the way that you achieve the bind is with the long edge,
Yes.
right? Now this is the reason that he makes it explicit is because at least in our tradition, a lot of the bind work happens with the short edge.
Yeah, that's a good point. Let's actually show, right? Like I'll show you what happens if I try and wind the short edge on that like an idiot, right? So I'm gonna strike in, I've got it. Okay, I'm gonna wind the short edge. Crap, right? That process of winding over, no matter how tight I try and keep it, is gonna either impair, like structurally I'm breaking, or it's gonna move the point and give him the ability to now.
You know, and my favorite part about why that's weak is that we go back up. So when we're here and he winds the short edge over, now he's giving me his whole flat
Yep.
to just suppress, and I don't have to do any work for that because his body isn't structurally sound to support the weight of that.
Yeah, here it's now being versus all the way through.
So there is a certain amount of wind that you do use, right, to
Right. So-
but long edge is
control the
engaged the
blade.
whole time.
Yeah, so this is where like terminology is careful. When I specifically refer to winding, I'm usually indicating winding long to short or vice versa, versus winding the long edge. Stupid language. It's terrible. We need like alternative, terms for it.
I guess so you're using the crossguard to control his blade, so you need to manipulate it.
It's not even necessarily that I'm using the crossguard to control
Crossguard,
his blade.
strong, long edge. crossing.
Ideally, well, no. What she's saying is, ideally, if I catch his sword between my blade and my cross, it's beautiful, right? It's giving me a lot of controls. But if I turn too far, I'm going to lose that,
Right.
and then I won't catch it. And even if I don't perfectly catch it, I don't really care because he can't reach me with the angles on that easily, and and he's worrying about getting stabbed or cut in the head.
Yep. Yep.
know,
So what is it that protects your fingers while you're doing this technique?
The sword, my shield does.
Could you show it
Sure.
in a little bit more close-up detail?
So as he cuts in, we'll just go real. We're gonna push forward. I've got a cross, right? As I'm thrusting right at his face, if James just comes straight down, right? Bam. Now, this is also why I need to either turn or take the step, because on that one, if I don't move, he might reach me. Now, if I had turned, I get a little bit greater advantage, or if I had taken a small step, I get a little greater advantage. But if I just stay there, there's a very real possibility that I don't completely close the line, and I get stabbed in my left eye.
Rob,
Okay.
why don't you come over here too? Because you're gonna assist in this.
Ladies and gentlemen, Robert Rutherfoord.
Rob's probably done the most work that I know of on understanding the overbind as Meyer kind of has developed it, and understanding this particular parry in terms of the overbind. So if you could explain what it is exactly that's happening as as the strike is being set off and the point is being turned in. How are you keeping yourself safe in that?
Sure. So I think you guys already hit a lot of the major points. The only thing that I would add is something that Ted alluded to, is that when I'm thrusting to that right shoulder, and Meyer in his rapier section makes the point that parry to this side, parry and respond to the same side that he's cutting to, right? So it's a subtle hint that I'm not going to try to parry to the other side and then do something else, right? So to whichever side he's cutting, I parry to that side. So by making this strong angle, this overbind against his sword, right, I'm collecting the force of his cut down into the stronger part of my blade. Yeah. So if I point at his face, what it allows him to do is to stay on the middle of my blade, or even get to the weakest part of my blade. Right? So really, I'm collecting the force with the setting off. So as I come in, I collect that energy, right? And now, because my point was slightly to his right, my left, I need to get the point back online. So by winding the sword, just by turning the hand up, that naturally happens. And I only start turning the hand once I've collected the energy. If I do it too soon, it's a different sort of parry. So he comes in, and I start winding too soon, now he's on top of my blade, and then we get more of a hanging situation. Okay, so that'd be a hanging. So really a hanging is the weak version of the absetzen.
Great, thank you, Rob.
Yeah.
Any more from us?
So I just asked the guys to talk about collapsed arms and how not to do an Absetzen. So
Right.
we're just going to go through that now.
Yeah, so an important point on this is that it's a thrust. I'm going to long point. So anytime I'm not strong enough to stop any of you with just my bent arm, right? Like that's not gonna happen. If your weight is behind it, it's gonna get collapsed. And the sword is the same thing, right? If I try and stop it with a bent arm, it's gonna get blown through. So if we're gonna do the Absetzen, and so a mistake that can happen is that he strikes in, go ahead and start to strike in, and I just come in and I'll say here, I don't like, if it's going across, I can't stop it from going across. If it's coming straight in at me, and I'm gonna stop it, like I can't, right? I can try and push out, but if he's really coming down and he collect on the cross, right? Come down and collect on the cross, right? And I'm in bent arm, like push down, and I'm gonna try and, right? Like it's even on his weak, like this is too late, and that's bad, right? That's getting dead. I'm not able to channel that force back into it. I need to stop him. To stop him, I don't want to use muscle, I want to use structure. And so that will be that full extension so that it's being put all the way through my skeletal into the ground, right? My skeletal frame is channeling the force into the ground. I don't have to actually work hard because I'm lazy and I don't want to work hard. I'll let my bones can work hard.
So especially if I'm using proper cutting mechanics, which is something that is hard to measure in like the tournament or competitive scene. It's hard to measure how well we're doing that, but certainly if I'm using proper cutting mechanics, I'm exhibiting the amount of core strength that I would need to cut through my opponent if he were unarmed, right? To cut all the way through him, then a collapse structure on his part, it'll just blow through. He would collapse in entirety. So you don't really see the subtlety of that when we're doing slow fencing.
So here, let's see if we try. I'll do it as a Absetzen cut. Just throw a Zornhound for this, right? So that we can really get the force, right? And I'm gonna go two ways. I'm gonna go with soft, like bent arms, and then I'll go with hard arms. So we'll go soft first, right? So I'm not gonna straighten my arms completely as he cuts in. And so I'm gonna cut, and like I don't care how hard I push, I'm not gonna lose that. And if that was coming at my head here, it's gonna force me down. On the other hand, we do that same thing, but I make sure to engage my arms, my body, the whole thing when he cuts in, right? I'm gonna come in, right? That time, Rob was talking about collecting the force. I don't know if you can see it.
It was definitely
His force
apparent. It was apparent to me.
collected right down onto the cross.
Yep.
Okay, so we'll do that one more, right? Right? Right. That's fine. Not worried about that. That was your flat.
Right, there you go.
So-
So yeah, the energy of my cut.
Went here.
Yeah.
He rebounded off, and while like the sword touched me, it was the flat of
Yeah.
the blade. I'm not worried about that as I'm stabbing him in the face.
So as a fencer who's likely to be probably less strong and not as powerful as my opponents, the Absetzen, I can still execute as strong Absetzen by extending my arms,
Right.
Without a doubt.
by getting
Without
a good
doubt.
body structure.
Your skeleton is stronger than my muscles.
Right.
Yes.
And that's the key, right? We can get one of the big guys and good and lean on you in good structure. You can hold them up if everything is in alignment.
One of the tactical considerations, so they, as far as collapsing the arm, right? So Ted and James perfectly explained why we want an extended arm, straight skeletal structure. There's also important tactical considerations as well. So if James is cutting at me or thrusting at me, once he comes in, maybe I have everything else correct, my blade position, the long edge, but my arms are collapsed and he keeps coming. His point is in front of me, okay? Now maybe I could profile a bit more, but still his point is too close to me. The more I extend my arm, the more I keep his point away from me.
We're talking now that there's that much distance between, come get an angle over the shoulder, and you can see how far off the line just extending his arms and straightening them has diverted, right? It's geometry. It's,
As opposed to
Yeah.
this.
which will come right in.
Even if I
They come right in.
parried it here, it's still too close and he can easily Disfexen.
Yeah.
Okay.
Right. So
The time of his Disfexen is too quick for me to respond to it. However, if he wants to change through, when I parry out here, he has a lot further to go. And I just set up on the opposite side. During the parry, he keeps his sword further away from the target. 2, because I've done that, I've created a larger opening to where I want to strike. Because his blade is further to my left, I have more to work with on his inside line.
And 3, he's defended the changing sides on my part,
Right.
in both of them. Right, so even a strike around, if I don't have any time, or the changing through, as you saw before, I have to do so much here that I'm going to eat his point regardless.